Which job is a lot less fun than most people expect? Story 1. Working at a Charles Dickens fair is interesting but not incredibly fun. It is hard to stay in character, and people get so mad when they see the Alice in the Wonderland area. Yeah, we know it's not Charles Dickens, but we can't have a kids' play area in the world of Oliver Twist, okay? Story 2. Wow, I expected everyone to say this, but I haven't seen it yet. 100 bartender. We've all had fun in bars, but never the bartender. Imagine throwing a house party where you're responsible for everyone and you can't drink yourself. Edit. Yes, I know a lot of places are fine with you drinking, but I always found it made the job harder rather than easier. Answer. I worked in a bar where the manager would give us shots a lot during the night. The problem was that it was a second job for me. So I would work all week, get home on a Friday at 6 p.m., be in the bar at 9 p.m., and there until 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. depending on the night. 3 a.m. shots sound great until you haven't eaten since 7 p.m. It's your 8th shot, so you're feeling it. You need to deal with tipsy people and do maths, and you have been awake 20 hours. I would get criticized for not being a team player if I didn't want to have them. Story 3. Not a specific job, but traveling for work. I'm in tech, and a lot of people starting out talk about wanting to go to customer sites and get out in the field. I love to travel for fun, but it's hard to fit in the fun stuff when you have presentations and stuff to worry about, and a lot of times your customers aren't in the fun cities anyway. I also think I prefer the stability and day-to-day schedule of traveling less frequently. Answer. I traveled 85 for my job for years. Had a colleague who bitched and whined that he was so jealous until he hit the road and quit after less than a year. Yes, I got to go to some amazing places, but more often than not, I was in a crappy hotel in a crappy location. Even in great places, your colleagues or customers go home to their families, and as much as I love exploring alone, it does get lonely. Yes, my tiara hurts my head, wah. I finally stopped when I got assigned a new and fairly attractive destination, and all I could think was, oh, ugh, how long is that flight, and can someone else do it? I sure miss my exec platinum airline status, though. Honestly, situations like this always make you wonder how differently people can perceive the exact same events. Everyone has their own truth, and finding a middle ground in such conflicts can be incredibly difficult. Story 4. Gynecologist. I remember in middle school, so many boys said they wanted to be a gynecologist when they grow up, smugly thinking they'd beaten the system. Oh no, my young friends. You'd mostly be looking at old diseased female body part all day. Story 5. Dog hotel. Thought I'd get to play with puppies all day. Instead, I cleaned diarrhea off kennel floors for 5 hours a day and stopped tiny dogs from humping each other for the other 3. Story 6. Accountant. Everyone thinks it's all fun and number crunching, but the constant stream of women throwing their panties and wanting to bear your children is honestly exhausting. Answer. My mother's an accountant. From what I can tell, it's a lot of staring at large numbers and making sure they're all correct and going through vast amounts of spreadsheets. Then discovering you made a mistake somewhere on the spreadsheet that was for January, so now you have to redo January, February, March, April, and May. Meanwhile, your deadline for June is in 3 hours. Story 7. Demolition. Everyone wants to break shoot with a sledgehammer. Everyone is tired of lifting that sledgehammer by 5 swings. Nobody wants to load the broken stuff into bags or a wheelbarrow and take it to the dumpster. Story 8. Pilot. You could lose your career with a single illness or injury, which could be happening to me soon. Answer. Not sure of the exact details, but I have a friend who's done tons of hours and has been planning on being a pilot his whole life basically, and was just recently diagnosed with epilepsy at age 20. I can't recall if he's ever actually had an episode seizure. I totally understand why he shouldn't fly anymore, but still unfortunate to lose something you're passionate about. Story 9. Flight attendant 1. You are on call, on reserve, forever, have a terrible schedule, have no life, and make no money for 5 to 10 years. 2. While you work for peanuts, you can't afford to use your flight benefits in any substantial way. 3. Then, when you finally get a chance to use your benefits for a trip, you have to fly standby, which means you aren't guaranteed to get on the flight you want. 4. Then if you do make it out of town, you better have like a week off so you can make darn sure you're back in your base city in time for your next work shift. 5. Did I mention there is an act of U.S. legislation, Railway Labor Act, that allows airlines to exploit so you don't get paid for certain work hours that you actually need to be working? For example, saying FAs don't get paid for boarding or anytime the plane is at the gate. Worst job ever. Edit. Typos and clarity. Answer. Oh, I love my job as a flight attendant, but it sounds like our countries have very different conditions. We get an 8-week roster, only 5 consecutive days of standby. We are paid 90 minutes before the flight departs and 30 minutes after arriving at the gate. If there are delays, we get paid. 6 weeks annual leave a year, 15 paid sick days. We work on average 30 weeks. But as I only do ultra long haul, I would say 8 of those hours are spent sleeping in a bunk bed. I only do 12 flights tops in 2 months and earn 90,000 Australian dollars a year, including per diems. 20-hour shifts can get very tiring, but I feel like I have a great work-life balance because my weekly hours are compacted into 2 flights. We have no seniority. It is all rostered through a fair share system. I've been flying 12 years and hope to continue for another 12. Of course, COVID has grounded me completely, so at the moment the job sucks, but hopefully my airline will be back flying next year once borders open again. Story 10. Patent attorney. Don't get me wrong, the fans, the women, and the fanatical women are all nice, but eventually the excitement of patents starts to wane and you ask yourself whether it's all worth it. Story 11. Being a character performer at Disney. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing perks and truly magical moments. I know I'm super lucky and tons of people would love to be in my shoes. But the day-to-day work is exhausting in ways I never thought possible. Guests are ridiculously harmful behavior. I've had things said and done to me I never would have imagined. The company isn't always great. It highly depends on your leadership. And there's so much focus on your body and face, good and bad, that it can be incredibly depressing and difficult emotionally. Plus, you have to accept that there's very little upward mobility. Most people grow out of it, and it's rough to know that one day you'll get too old or too fat and you will have to start all over in a new career field. So you constantly are thinking either 1, what you're going to do when you leave, 2, how you're going to keep yourself there. I personally knew it would be temporary, and I now only work there seasonally while I have a normal career. But Disney has a way of sucking you in. Edit. Hey, my first award. Thank you so much. Answer, I was a character for almost 5 years at Disney and a host. I've never been able to describe this as well as you just did. Thank you. It's like you just hit a point and it's not fun anymore. When you're new and thinking, wow, I get paid to do this? And watching veterans quit because they're over it, you think they're nuts. Then it builds up and you too arrive there. Great memories, but God, never again. Story 12. I honestly think being a streamer and a YouTuber is a lot less fun than it seems to be. But a lot of people know that by now, still though it doesn't seem unfun. Story 13. Surgery. Pretty cool at first and good pay. Fast forward a few years and you've seen everything. Not to mention you stand for 8 to infinity hours a day. Hunched over, I needed a spine fusion because after 20 years my disc eroded away, doing the same surgeries you've done 1,000 times. Not to mention everyone wants free money, so you have to be constantly aware of everything, dissecting out a gallbladder. Easy. Dissect a few cms away from where you should be and cut the wrong thing. Prepare for a large settlement. Patients Google everything and think they know everything. Families scream at you if things don't go as planned. Oh, and did I mention seeing people die? Nothing like the TV shows, mostly just boring, repetitive work where you're exposed to numerous diseases each day, and your schedule is more like an assembly line. We rarely say Mrs. Smith is our next patient. We far more often say the appendectomy is next. Story 14. Hokage, you're overworked most of the time and barely get to go home to see your family. You'd think you'd be fighting ninjas and shoot, but actually you're just doing mountains of paperwork. Plus your son dislikes you because you're barely home. Story 15. Theme park security guard ride assistant. Yes, they're the same job. People constantly come at you with the stupidest questions and entitled attitude, all the while your bosses force you to work extra hours every day because they don't have the nerve to tell people to go once it's closing time. Story 16. All of them. As Red Foreman would say, work is work. If it wasn't work, they wouldn't call it work. They'd call it super crazy, wonderful fun time or skippity-doo. And of course, if you do what you love, you will never work a day in your life. But that's because you'll be unemployed. In reality, doing what you love with someone else breathing down your neck to do it their way and faster quashes the love pretty quickly. If you go out on your own as an entrepreneur, congratulations. You're still doing it with your clients, breathing down your neck to do it their way and faster, cheaper. Plus, you have to do sales, marketing, legal, payroll, collections, etc. on top of it. Until you get big enough to hire people for that, and then you're the one breathing down their neck to do it your way and faster. It's work. It's not supposed to be fun. Find something tolerable enough and find what fun you can in it. Save the things you really enjoy for your off time so you don't lose that enjoyment. Story 17. Toys R Us. Not around anymore, but I'm sure this applies to other toy stores, though few that they are. It is still retail, and in this case, it involves people's kids. So of course the parents are twice as entitled to have to deal with. Edit. Thank you, Lord, to Chankong YT for your energy tithing. I look forward to growing as gelatinous and as all-encompassing as Akira from the attention. Edit. I rescind my earlier assumption that Toys R Us was closed. That is what I get for listening to rumors. It was shut down where I was from originally. I now see that it still exists in most of the US, Canada, and certain parts of Asia. Merry Christmas, Black Friday to you all. There are moments when life throws scenarios at you that are wilder than any movie script. In times like these, you realize that reality is often much more complex and unpredictable than we tend to think when making our plans. Story 18. Working on set and film television. Yes, you do get to do a lot of cool shoot and see cool things. The scenery changes, and because you're freelance, you technically work for yourself. Plus, everyone you know who's not in the industry, family and friends back home, for example, always want to know what you're working on and who you're working with. So that's an ego builder. But you're working up to 100 hours a week. There's no work-life balance. Divorces are through the roof. People don't see their kids. You're constantly exhausted from working 16 to 18-hour days and sleeping for 5 hours because the commutes to and from set aren't included in those hours. And if you're not in a union, you can be completely on your own if something happens, like COVID. You work from Monday at 5 a.m. through Saturday at 5 a.m. most weeks. Try and recover and live your life in the 36 hours that you have in between. And that's your entire life. Also, as someone who had to spend 6 months recuperating and relearning to walk, you can also get hurt. Story 19. Programmer. People see it as an anonymous figure typing a few lines of code and gaining access to top-secret files. In reality, it's 10 coding and 90 searching your problems on Stack Overflow. Story 20. Lawyer. We have sexy paralegals and are in constant high-stress moments where lives are on the line, right? I mean, every show and game would make you think this. X200B, want to know what the vast majority of our job is? Sending letters to someone, reading, calling to ask if a paper was sent, and writing lengthy papers, which often could be under a page long, but tradition means they cannot be. I am a textbook example of a litigator, as I spend a crazy amount of my working time in court, by percentage, but want a rundown of my job last week? I spent a few hours on the phone with the court and a few hours with a whiteout pen to prepare for discovery to be sent out. More than one phone call, which amounts to little more than what the fudge calls from opposing counsel, and not a single moment doing something that will all of a sudden make millions of dollars for anyone or make me the most desirable person in the state because of a press release. Story 21. Being a boss or manager of any kind. You think it's going to be all gravy because you're on top, but there are two ways it can go. One, you're overworked and still not getting paid enough for the job. Two, no one is paying attention to your work because you are the boss, so you don't actually have to do anything or even have anything to do, so you are just chronically bored out of your skull trying to find something to do that looks like boss work. Story 22. Lawyer, no, it isn't like they show on TV. Hey, finally cases before the judge. Crap, the other party didn't show up. Next date that judge has given is 3 months away. Edit. Need to say a few things. One, thank you, fellow Redditors, for the gold and silver. Now I can finally see what our lounge is all about. Now, little bit about me. I am from India and have moved on from litigation to academia. Personally, it was the right decision for me, as now I am way less stressed and can work on things that intellectually stimulate me. Having said that, I need to clarify that law is still a very rewarding profession. There is something in it for everyone, for those who want to change the world, as well as for those who want to make money. It just demands too much of your time, plus the results of all your efforts are not immediate, and that can get stressful. Also, yes, that song Don't Be a Lawyer by Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is pretty spot on. Story 23. Being a heterosexual male at Victoria's Secret. I always got the same three questions. 1. How did you get this job? Simple, I applied. 2. Do you go in the back and smell the panties? Yes. It smells like the plastic bag and cardboard box I take them out of. 3. Isn't it awesome to see hot girls all the time? Sure, on Friday and Saturday. You know who buys lingerie on a Tuesday afternoon? Your grandmother, and she wants a man's opinion too. Story 24. Tattoo artist. It requires more time than just an 8-hour day. We often spend the weekends drawing and scheduling appointments. Tattoos often take longer than expected because people are picky, nervous, can't take the pain, or you have a placement or design issue. Working with the general public on this level can be rewarding, but can also be frustrating. It's a job you have to love at the core, otherwise you'll never make it a career. It's a lot to handle and becomes a complete lifestyle. I've seen many very good artists quit because of the demanding atmosphere. P.S. Celebrate 20 years in January. Story 25. Auditing. You may be thinking to yourself, I don't think auditing is fun at all. But you'd be wrong. It's a lot less fun than whatever shoot you are imagining. Say you're thinking it's about as fun as watching paint dry. At least the paint will actually dry on. Our audits will last forever and a day for good measure. Follow your dreams, kids, unless your dream is to be an auditor. Story 26. I do closed captioning. While I joke that yes, I get paid to watch TV, it's actually very tedious. And if you don't actually enjoy the programming, you're being forced to watch something you don't care for. Or worse, if it's something I do enjoy, like a long-form drama, we usually chop those up into 15-minute increments and split between everyone, so I only see chunks and not always even in order. It actually ruins the show for me. Edit. Wow. For a thread about my job not being fun, did not expect the response for interested parties. To summarize the questions, anyone who knows proper grammar and spelling can pretty much work the technical side of closed captioning. For live writing, you have to be a stenographer, which you need to train for with an associate's degree. If you're looking to do side transcription work, I'd recommend ordering a foot pedal online and looking into freelance sites such as Rev and Upwork. Story 27. TV, film production. I think most people dream of being the actor, the director, the people making the creative decisions, or the big shot producer calling the shots. But most of the people working in TV and film production are part of a machine, the grind, working in a system, trying to climb up to wherever they want to be. Many don't get to actualize their creative vision. Also, the industry can be project-based, job security concerns, and location-limited, NYLA, maybe other cities. Pay can be low starting out too, though it can be good if you work way up. But I did enjoy the type of people that work these jobs, a little more fun than the business folk I work with now. Edit, just want to note I have a lot of respect for the TV film industry. I would go back to it, but I would be careful about what the career path was. Story 28. Video game testing. I've been working in the game industry for 6 years now and teaching for 2. Testing video games is thought to be just, oh, you just play games all day. LOL. But it is actually very specific and arduous. First of all, there are a bunch of testing methodologies such as load soak testing, white room testing, version testing, to name a few. But the most common one is functionality testing. Functionality testing is, so if I walk into that corner with the shotgun in my inventory, I can clip through the wall, but if I have my M16 in my inventory, I don't clip through. Story 29, preschool teacher, especially with new COVID-19 regulations. Ever try social distancing 3-year-olds? Answer, my daughter was supposed to start preschool in the fall, and I'm like, how the hell do they accept 3 to 4-year-olds to wear masks and social distance? Also, if they expect the virus to spike again in the fall, are they going to cancel school again? Is it worth it sending my daughter to preschool this year? I've decided I'll homeschool her, and she'll start school next year when she goes to kindergarten. Story 30. Working in a music store, musical instruments. Your days are spent listening to 50 different people play 50 different riffs poorly simultaneously, as if they're all putting on their own concert. Answer. Some of my least favorites. Person who thinks playing well and playing loud are the same thing. Person who wants to make sure you know they are very smart and you are very lucky to be in their presence. Person who goes to absurd lengths to test out drumsticks to make sure they're pitch matched without knowing how to execute any of those techniques. Extra points if they're just going to shred them to splinters in a week anyway. People who act like you're in their way because you're trying to do your job. People who assume you couldn't possibly know anything about the instruments you play and sell all day long. Side note, I mostly loved my time working in a music store, and I enjoy helping people, but the people who come in with aggressive egos and nasty attitudes are insufferable. Story 31. Worked at a 50s diner. Cool decor, but the worst part was the jukebox. There are only a handful of 50s songs people remember, so we'd play the same 10 songs on repeat every day. Imagine Christmas time at the mall, except 365 days a year. Story 32. Teacher summers off, cool week for Thanksgiving, cool 2 weeks for Christmas, cool's entitled parents. Shoot school district and administration wanting you to do two different things. Shoot the kids, sigh. Okay, I love the kids so much, but they absolutely break your heart 100 of the time. There are assholes, sure, those aren't the ones who break your heart. It's those kids you can't help, whether it's from a shoot home life, bullying, or they just aren't smart. It's those kids who you go above and beyond for, but at the end of the day, you can't be there for them all the time. This is quite a specific story. It feels like there's no objectively right or wrong solution in cases like this, and every participant is simply acting based on their own internal convictions and priorities. Story 33. Working in a contemporary. Story 34. Working in a thrift store? Well, I always thought it sounded fun, but it's basically just the retail experience. But on top of that, people think they can haggle with you. I specifically worked in a nonprofit thrift store, charity shop, so it was extra infuriating when people tried to return things or talk us down from a 5 shirt. This isn't a garage sale. Story 35. Mailmen. Most people think you are just getting paid for going for a walk, but after training, only 20 stay on the job. Canada. Answer. My ex-barber when I lived in Puerto Rico quit barber to go USPS. He lasted a month and went back to barber. His reason was good pay. However, too much stress, the union, and not doing anything. Harassed by the supervisor, the white van that drive is hot as fudge inside. He had to be really careful with the van, especially driving in Barranquitas. It's a mountain and narrow roads and people drive crazy. So all that made him quit and go back to cutting hair. Story 36. Being a chef, all the flair and awesomeness they show on Vice and Netflix is far from what actually happens in the industry. It's not all fancy plates and tattooed cool-haired guys doing their thing. It's a substances-infested, law-breaking work environment that only benefits the owners of a restaurant. Edit, thank you for the love and good reads, people. I have some insane stories I'll share someday. For those asking, I am a sous chef at Michelin-level restaurants nowadays. Not a chef de cuisine yet. Edit 2. You guys are insane. I once had a server approach my table and asked where I work because he noticed the scars on my arm. Strong. Story 37. Playing music at events. It's fine playing piano in cafes or restaurants, or even the casual street performance with a few friends playing trumpet. That's all good, but I've played piano during weddings and funerals, and everyone is listening to and focused on you. There was one where this bride basically wanted me to learn a really overcomplicated piece, and because she was unorganized, I had 2 weeks. I have never looked more dead in the eyes than looking at this demon walking down the aisle. Why did she want to walk down the aisle to fudge Saint-Saëns? Story 38. As a kid, I was obsessed with space. My walls were plastered with space shuttles and shoot. My ceiling was a starry night sky. I wanted to be an astronaut. Then I found out most astronauts were from the Air Force or pilots. Then I thought I'd go into astronomy, talk to a guidance counselor, and found out how much math and shoot was involved. I just wanted to look at stars. So I went into something else I liked, and I still get to look at stars. Story 39. After reading this, it seems that the best choice is to avoid all jobs and live in a shack in the wilderness instead. Story 40. Engineer. I grew up loving planes and space travel and being interested in how things work. I love cars and motorcycles and anything mechanical or electrical. The reality is that you sit behind a desk, likely making subcomponents at best, and dealing with issues that arise when it doesn't work with another component for the final product. Most engineers will not use even half of what their degree was for. Please note that, of course, there are exceptions, and many engineers get to do really cool things for their whole career. I'm just saying that most don't. Story 41. Scuba instructor. Don't get me wrong, it has its perks. Travel, incredible sights, amazing people. But what they don't tell you is the pain of being chipper on your 9th dive of the day, or dragging someone who can barely swim down for a photo op with a clownfish you've seen 10,000 times and having to be excited about it. It's basically customer service with a mild danger factor. Story 42. Being an extra in a movie. Now, it can be super fun. I especially love historical and post-apocalyptic sci-fi fantasy type stuff. But a typical day on set wasn't what I thought it'd be when I started doing it. Often we have to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning to get to holding. And if you're a minute late to check in, sometimes they'll kick you out. Then we sit around in holding with sometimes hundreds of other extras. And we're usually sitting there for a good 3 or 4 hours before they start telling us to get ready to film. During this time, we go through long wardrobe, hair, and makeup lines where they reuse clothes, unless you bring them yourself, brushes and makeup without washing them. When we finally get to film, it's often the same mundane motions over and over, exceptions of course, and those are always fun. Then we either get shuffled around or go back to holding. Several more hours pass, we go film again. Hungry? You get lunch 6 hours after your call time and a usually meager supply of snacks. In between takes, it's more standing around, often in heat or rain, or we all get shuffled into cramped spaces to wait. Days on set are often more than 12 hours, and I know someone who had to be on set for 26 hours straight. They can legally hold you there until they declared filming is done, so don't make plans for the next day. Not to mention that you rarely see yourself in the final cut. I'm not trying to bash other background actors or the film industry because I've met lots of awesome people and gotten to do some pretty cool things. For example, interacting with main actors in scenes, running around in the woods with fake guns or being a zombie. But when I did my first job as a teen, I definitely thought it would be a lot different. ATA. Like others mentioned, and I'm not part of the SAG union, and extras who are do indeed get treated better, more perks. Also, it may be different in Hollywood. I've only worked in Georgia. I've also been a stand-in, and I like that a lot better because you're treated as the crew rather than, well, as extra. Story 43. Farming. At least in my experience, it's a rough and thankless way to make a living with no days off and no management to cry to when there's a problem. My dad is in the hospital and isn't doing well. Can I take a couple days off? The plants. Also, everyone thinks you have the cushiest job ever. Everything is automated now, isn't it? You get tons of bailouts and subsidies and whatnot, right? You get 3 months in winter off, right? One, maybe out west, where they're growing 1 billion acres of corn in one field, so the robot tractors can't really get confused, and such a machine would actually pay for itself. 2, only if you're in Iowa growing ethanol corn. 3, it's 3 months of building and equipment maintenance with no pay. It's the exact opposite of a paid vacation, but it goes for months. No, we don't go to Hawaii. Story 44. Veterinarian truly shocked that nobody has said this one yet. We have the highest tragic end rate of any profession. It's a lot more talking to people about money and a lot less doing medicine and saving animals than people hope going into it. Not all of the animals are grateful. Some of them want to bite you because you're hurting them, and they don't know it's in their best interest. Clients can be hugely manipulative jerks. There's lots of student debt, and don't get me started on near constant exposure to low levels of anesthetic gases. Edit. My colleagues showed up, so for anyone struggling, I want to leave this. Not one more vet. Answer. I'm a people physician, and I was looking for someone to say this. My heart goes out to veterinarians. I truly don't know how you handle learning the anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, diagnosis, and treatment as it pertains to multiple species. Additionally, although we aren't in the golden age of medicine anymore, MDs are still well paid and overall respected by the public. Y'all don't get the pay and respect that you deserve. It's interesting to observe how small details can completely change the course of events. You never know where a seemingly ordinary decision or a stray word might lead in the long run. Story 45. Working in a flower shop. It's just like any other retail job, but people constantly tell you how fun your job must be. Also, helping grieving families choose funeral flowers is not fun. Story 46. Professional sports. I played rugby semi-pro for 2 seasons, and I fudged dislike it. Training 6 days a week, get told what to eat, team training 3 days a week, 3-hour-long leg days twice a week, 6 or 7 vitamin pills to take a day, and then getting up at silly o'clock in the morning to get to the game. Story 47. Almost any job. I got into some because I was already doing them for fun or extra money. As a career, most lost their luster, thinking now about taking early retirement from IT and getting a less stressful job at Aldi or something. Story 48. Working at GameStop. I can't tell you how many times I heard, "Wow, must be great to sit and play video games all day." No, I have to sit and babysit my team because the company loved telling us, make sure they use the tablet. So much fun pestering customers the second they walk in with a tablet. So, Story 49. Although not necessarily bad, beekeeping. Get used to the constant sound of buzzing during hive inspections, swarm removals, plus wearing the protective suit in hot jerk weather for hours on end, give or take the situation. Also, there appears to be a large number of beekeepers allergic to bees, so EpiPens are a must. Story 50. Chemistry in any industrial research lab. Very little mixing colorful solutions in Erlenmeyer flasks, and a whole lot of, oh shoot, someone didn't document this correctly 3 months ago. Go fill out paperwork for the next 4 days. And I prepped these samples for 2 days and found out on day 3 that they were contaminated. It might have been me. It might not have been me. Try again because you have no time to investigate. Story 51. Military intelligence at the battalion level. Yeah, so it was hot today, it's going to be hot tomorrow. Probably. Drink water. Story 52. Ice cream and cookie places. I have worked both. You hear the same thing all the time. I could never work here. I would eat everything. But when you work there, you definitely don't eat the product. On top of that, a lot of Karen types will come in and be rude. Story 53. Game master at an escape room. It's the same repetitive script, resetting the same stuff, giving clues and hints about the same things. The patrons are often competitive families who argue, obnoxious, impatient 13-year-olds, college students who have been drinking, idiots who break shoot and touch shoot that I specifically told them not to. They never remember your initial instructions. If something gets broken during one group, you have to hurry and fix it before the next group. Answer: my cousin used to work at an escape room and let me, my sister, and a few of our other cousins come in during off hours. Apparently, it was the most entertained he'd ever been as game master for the escape room, largely because A, he got to see just how stupid his cousins are, B, he got to see us turn on each other at multiple points, and C, he could say whatever the hell he wanted because it was family, so he didn't have to stick to the same script. Apparently, it was frustrating watching us for those first 20 minutes doing nothing and pointing at random shoots saying, "Is this a clue?" No, it's not, idiot. Stop pointing that out. He was laughing way too hard when we finally got out. Sometimes it's helpful to look at a situation from the outside to realize just how nuanced everything is. Social interactions are a delicate thing, and there are no universal instructions that would fit every single person. Story 54. Being a writer, I always thought it was my absolute dream job. But the only job I could get after college was working in a content mill as a blog writer. I used to work 70-hour weeks, staring at the computer in a basement of an old bank, writing bullshit articles about the dangers of mold, fence cleaning, and why you need a commercial awning, and the dream turned into a nightmare. While I still write occasionally, I am now working as a communications person, so it is a bit less heavy. Answer: similarly, fiction writer isn't as amazing as movies and TV shows would have you believe. Most of the work is spent doubting yourself, feeling like your book isn't going anywhere, and that you'll never be able to finish it, and even when you do, that nobody is going to like it, and if they do, that you'll never live up to the expectations with the next one. Oh, and line editing is one of the most boring, mind-numbing things I've done in my entire life, especially when it comes to cleaning up repetitions. It literally never ends. You basically just have to let go of it when you hit your deadline and hope you did good enough that readers won't ask themselves how such a terrible writer can be published. Don't think I'd want to do anything else for the rest of my life, though. Story 55. Lifeguarding. Everyone expects Baywatch, act, saving lives all the time. But it's usually just sitting there blowing your whistle telling little shoot to stop fudge around. Answer: there is no way I could do that job. I'd zone out way too easy. Before COVID, I'd watch the lifeguards at my daughter's swim school. There were like 3 of them at any given time, but they were always looking up and down side to side, nodding their heads, looking out. I swear they swapped out every 10 minutes or so. That has to be exhausting and boring as hell at the same time. But once, boom, dude, was I the water grabbing a little one, fast as hell, mad props. Story 56. I heard that zookeepers that circumcise elephants have it bad. The pay is terrible, but the tips are huge. Story 57. Airport baggage handler. Yay, it's fun being able to see parts of an airport people wouldn't normally get to see and drive around the airfield in spare time to have a look at some planes, especially fancy private jets. But my God, is it hard. Long hours, no social life, because when you have days off, you spend them catching lost sleep. Absolutely horrendous pay for hazardous work. In our training video, they showed us the aftermath of someone who had been hit by an ATR 500 propeller and literally just smiled and said, "Don't do this." Also, what some people don't realize is that those bags don't magically appear on the plane. Some are loaded individually by hand. This is called loose load, and not into bins, which is a lot easier. You could be stacking over 200 bags in a space so cramped you can't even be on your knees if you are tall. Some of the bags, cargo, can weight over 30 kilograms, so it is physically backbreaking work. And on some days, you may not even get a break on a 12-hour shift. And yes, that happens a lot. But the absolute worst part is the bodies. When someone is being sent home to be buried, we are the ones who put that coffin into the hold and tie your loved one down, and it's not easy for us. My most recent coffin was that of a 2-year-old baby, and my God, I was in tears tying that coffin down in the hold. So next time you're packing for that vacation, remember we are down there. Edit. Wow, this exploded overnight. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. Also, yes, I'm aware a lot of people don't see this job as fun, but for people with an interest in aviation, any job at an airport is fun. Story 58. Developing virtual reality games. First of all, if you're prone to VR sickness, prepare to get sick as soon as your buggy alpha software does something stupid like rapid artificial locomotion. I've seen people quit teams over this. A lot of the development and testing is not in headset but on your screen, just because it's a pain to switch back and forth all the time. And if you're working on back-end stuff like server-side or build and release, you'll barely be in headset at all. On top of that, very few VR titles are successful enough to end up with a substantial player base, so you start to lose hope that anything you do will ultimately matter. I know prototypers and designers who are in headset all day, coolest job, IMO, but even their work can be quite tedious, and they spend a lot of time working around software limitations and writing bug reports. Then there's the platform submission process, particularly with PlayStation 5R. They will keep rejecting your submissions over and over with the tiniest nitpicks. Story 59. Scientist. I promise you, most of the time, it isn't anything like the cool lab scenes in the movies. It's slow and frustrating 99 of the time. I still love it though, monotony and all. Story 60. I write adult fan fiction as a side hustle. After a certain point, it's just like writing a paper, except you have to keep thinking of different synonyms for a male body part. Story 61. Just a quick I assume for those reading this thread and looking for career advice. The answers here are inevitably going to be biased towards those who have had bad experiences at a particular job and are not necessarily representative of that industry as a whole. I know this because I have seen several people say programming, followed by a list of their problems on the job. And I don't doubt that those people are telling the truth. There are a lot of shoot programming jobs, but there are good ones too. I'm a programmer, been doing it professionally for about 20 years, and I love my job. In fact, the last 3 jobs I've had have been fantastic. Great pay, comfortable working conditions with reasonable hours, good coworkers, including managers, and interesting, challenging work. Sure, the work can be frustrating. That's unavoidable when you're solving difficult technical problems, but that's what they pay me for. Besides, the more frustrating the problem, the more satisfying it is when you solve it. I have no complaints. I have had shoot jobs for sure, but those are just individual jobs. If you find yourself in that situation and you feel that this, whatever this is something you really love and really want to do, you shouldn't necessarily give up. If you can be patient and look for opportunities, you might be able to find a better one. I'm not saying this to invalidate what anyone here is saying, just to put it all in the proper context. Story 62. Video game tester. You'd think getting paid to play games would be fun, but picture playing the same broken game 8 hours a day, every day, for 6 months to a year. Add in some overtime and some weekends around certification time, and you have yourself not only a recipe for depression, but also a brand new reason to lose some of your love for video games. Story 63. I am an auto racing driver who works at an auto manufacturer's experience program where anyone, yes, anyone, can come drive the cars on a track with an instructor. Every day people tell me how lucky I am to have this job. All they see is us driving these relatively boring, to the instructors, street cars vaguely fast around a track. We all feel pretty hoard out. The best way to describe the job is teaching several adults every day their first 30-minute piano lesson again and again, while they're mostly just interested in the novelty of sitting behind a piano and taking selfies. Also, being polite is so difficult. No one says before their first piano lesson, "I've never played piano, but I've always been interested and I listen to a lot of piano music, so I'm fairly confident," and then ask their instructor, "So how great was I? Like, bro, you just spend 30 minutes doing this. What do you want to hear?" We teach about 4 sessions a day, and it's 4 times of some moron not realizing how close they were to seriously totally a six-figure car. A lot of people also think the instructors are just there to babysit you and make sure you don't drive too fast. Like, dude, no one is worried about you driving too fast. We're worried you're going to scare yourself and hit the brakes somewhere stupid and upset the balance of the car. And because you can't react quick enough because you're not used to sliding a car faster than around a parking lot or roundabout, you're going to spin it, all while going probably 15 miles per hour slower through that same turn than a professional would. On your first couple hours of trying something new, you're not going to even approach the level of someone who has only done that craft from the time they were 15 to 30. Yeah, you drive your Corvette fast in the mountains. I'm sure you have fun. That has nothing to do with the hours I spent poring over post-practice session data and video for weeks before a race. More than that, let's say I'm a track day hobbyist who works here out of boredom or for fun. Why would you argue with an instructor who spends 10-hour days, 4 or 5 days a week on the same track in the same cars? The worst thing are people who brag about scaring their instructor because they think they were fast. No, you made your instructor nervous because you weren't listening and you were making tons of mistakes, but still trying to push the car to the limit. It's shocking to me when people can't even correct a small slide or wiggle over in our safe area where we let you play somewhere safe to make mistakes and you can't hit anything. And yet that want to drive at the limit on a track. If the car steps out on track over 90 miles per hour, it's going to be a lot harder to catch than at 20 miles per hour on our soft concrete. I am fully ready to quit this job. It's cheap thrills for morons. I can't believe I typed all this out finally. I've been needing to get it off my chest for a long time. So that was the story. It leaves us with more questions than answers, but it's exactly these kinds of cases that make us involuntarily analyze our own behavior and reactions in similar circumstances. Story 64, Bar Bouncer. Hours of tension and boredom interrupted by moments of adrenaline-fueled fear for your life. Then some jerk pukes cheap booze on your shoes. Edit, I was 19 when I started, and I thought I would be getting paid to meet lots of girls and listen to live music, which I did. I also had knives pulled on me, endured threats on my life, got my nose broken, not even in a fight, and stood around and did nothing most of the time. You don't get to relax, though, because you're constantly looking for trouble. Awful job. Answer, I feel that, especially the boredom part. I was in ECMT, which pays crap, years ago and fell into security work where I was security until people bleed, intoxicated, whatever, to also get paid crap but be able to cover bills. It's mind-numbingly boring the majority of the time until I get to de-escalate a situation where someone feels way too entitled. Jerk tries something stupid in a brief window of very violent danger. Maybe weird, but the boredom was my least favorite part. The best were moments when I helped break up assholes fighting and then got to see attitudes swing 180 when they need to get patched up, and I'm the only medical person there. Weirdly regular, EMT be a jerk, event security be a jerk, event EMT. Oops, what a joke, we're bros, right? Story 65. I worked at a Netflix call center. Sounds awesome. You talk about movies and TV shows, right? Nope, I severely underestimated how pissed off people get about those things. Story 66. I always say the more fun it is to go somewhere, the worse it is to work there, like amusement parks and arcades. Story 67. Video game developer, non-indie. They're notoriously overworked, especially during crunch time. The field is highly competitive too, so I imagine if you have the slightest issue with work being your entire life, it wouldn't be hard to replace you. Voice acting is also pretty brutal. Voice actors generally don't get paid very well, and they're straining their throats or whatever. Answer. Not only that, but video game developers are notorious for not getting paid what they deserve, especially relative to other peers in the CS world. I mean, a lot of these guys, especially those who make their own game engines and stuff, are basically creating miniature worlds with realistic physics and graphics all from scratch. Obviously, a lot of big AAA titles have huge teams working on them, but some only have around 20 people. Story 68. Beer taster. So first of all, no one actually wants to drink beer at 9:30 on Monday morning in a corporate office. But you rock up to a dozen glasses of beer in front of you. You make small talk about what your colleagues' kids did on the weekend, and then you're tasting. Things you're tasting could involve stuff that's come back from consumers because it tastes weird. Usually because they left it in the back seat of their car in full summer sun for 2 weeks and cooked the shoot out of it. Stuff that's come in from the breweries because something has gone wrong and they can't figure out what stuff that the RD team are working on and haven't gotten right yet, stuff that the lab team have aged well past the best before date, just to see how bad it really gets. Very. Other problems. These aren't all me. They're a collection from a bunch of colleagues. If you're at the breweries, it could be 30-odd samples of exactly the same beer, just from different storage tanks. You have to check is okay. If you're tasting at beer festivals, there are 200-odd whack craft beer samples, which means by the time you're done, your palate is wiped, you're too tipsy to enjoy the festival, you have to network with the rest of the industry who are sober, and you spend the weekend recovering. Worse if you're a small woman and the other tasters are faring better than you. If you go out to client sites to work on new developments, and there's more tasting involved than you expected or it's high adult beverage content, you end up leaving your car in the middle of nowhere and have to get home and back again. Especially embarrassing when you're a small woman and the other guys are okay to drive theirs. There's always one guy who spits, and it's gross. You go out to a bar on the weekend with your mates, and they all ask you for opinions on beer when you're just trying to enjoy one. Or if you want to switch off from work and order a nice girly cocktail and get given shoot for it, the looks of judgment from the doctor when they ask how often you drink and you tell them the truth if you want to lose weight. Good luck. Calorie counting's at. Don't get me wrong. There are worse jobs out there, but I don't even like beer. Story 69. Seeing all this makes me feel like I don't want to have a job, but instead live off fish. As in catching and eating, it's my favorite thing to do, not the job of a fisherman. Story 70. OB ultrasound. People say, oh, you get to look at babies all day, how fun. But it's a lot of miscarriages and late demise, abnormalities and terminal diagnosis. Not great, not fun. Story 71. Zookeeper. Don't get me wrong, it's awesome to be around so many amazing animals and care for them, but the smells are ridiculously, insanely foul. I have a really strong stomach, and it's still tough for me. We've had some interns quit over it. I was warned about the smells when getting into the field, but thought, oh, I've volunteered at animal shelters. I know what animal stink smells like. Nope, not even close. Answer, ha 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 ha. That's the truth. I've been a keeper for 10 years and recently became a department director and was surprised how much of a problem we have with the new keepers and interns. I've had to constantly tell some of them, yes, you do actually have to clean up the otter poop. Yes, I know it's slimy and smells like rotten fish. That is how an otter works. No, you can't take an hour break to shower 3 times just because you slipped in the sick cheetah's diarrhea puke. Go wipe it off and get back to work. Story 72. Event planner, it's hell on earth when you have a million things going on and you're waiting for everything to come together. Answer, former event planner. My favorite thing was hearing, oh, it must be so much fun going to parties all the time. Event planners don't go to parties all the time. They work at parties all the time. You're the first in, last out. You spent months planning the perfect menu you don't eat. Actually, you're lucky if you have time to grab a cube of warm cheese off a plate while you're chasing after the master of ceremonies who is busy getting sloppy tipsy. You watch everyone to make sure they're having a good time while ensuring they're not overserved and causing trouble. If you're lucky, a coworker will thrust a glass of Maumite warm Chardonnay in your hand once things are well underway. And while you're grateful, you inwardly cringe at the thought that it costs $18, and your boss is watching the bar tab like a hawk. Yeah, Karen, it's super fun, not. Story 73. Honest, most real answer. Any job, every job. Until you've done it, you only have an idealized version of it in your head. Story 74. Video game tester. You aren't spending your time playing completed, fully realized games. You are playing the same level of a game over and over, seeing if there are bugs. Story 75. Programming. Please help me. I need a hug. Why did I need to be such a nerdy fudge kid when I was younger? Edit. Sorry if I made you guys question your career path. I wouldn't trade programming for anything. D. Story 76. Musician, all that so-called talent comes from years of training, practice, and study, only to have people tell you that you don't have a real job. Story 77. Being a cook or a chef, did it for almost 15 years, standing in a 90-degree humid kitchen, being screamed at to rush your orders but still make it look pretty, getting grease all over you, causing bad acne, working close and then a morning shifts and getting to be at home for less than 6 hours. Start drinking too much to relieve the stress. Standing for 8 to 10 hours a day every day, no weekends off, getting time for vacation almost impossible. Pretty much industry standard wage cap at 20 an hour. And your coworkers are either crazy, addicted to something, or don't speak English. So it is hard to communicate, burning yourself all the time, getting sanitizer and degreaser all over your body, and breathing it in every day. If one person fudge up on the line, it fudge you up, and it is hard to get back to normal. Losing so much water due to the fast pace, work, and high temperature. Environment, your pee is brown after bad shifts, where you didn't even have time to take a break, and you didn't even need to pee because of the dehydration. Working in a state like NJ, where you are not required to have a break at all if you are over 18. So your boss takes advantage of that. Super high turnover rate, so you are constantly teaching someone new. I worked from mom and pop shops to fine dining to bakeries. Same shoot everywhere. Story 78. Personal trainer. Just lazy, unmotivated people who get mad they aren't losing weight. Then they leave the gym and treat themselves with a 400-calorie dessert and a shake. And no you. I'm not talking to you about steroids. You literally just started going to the gym. Edit. That was mostly a rant. Some things to consider. Weird hours, it's basically customer service. A lot of people are misinformed about fitness. To be trainer at schools, you need an actual degree. The certification is kind of a joke, IMO. The people who really need you are the ones most likely to quit since they usually have other underlying issues. The job can be emotionally draining. Story 79. Oh my gosh! Build a bear. Weirdest and most frustrating thing. Granted, I didn't make it a super long time in the job and seeing kids so happy is great, but they are really strict and the bad times get pretty bad. Story 80. Writer. I'm in my 12th year as a copywriter. Be prepared to rephrase the same thing over and over and over and over again and have to make it completely unique every time. Then get ghosted by the employer when payday comes. Story 81. Barnes & Noble. Your job has literally nothing to do with books. It obviously attracts a lot of that type, myself included. Answer. My younger sister worked in the cafe for a long time. She said it was really frustrating, especially since they sold Starbucks coffee, but weren't an actual Starbucks store. So people would complain about not taking their gift loyalty cards or minor variations in the drink or pastry menu. That and making espresso drinks for people's 5-year-olds just felt really slimy. Story 82. Professional photographer. Not like hobbyist, but business-owning photographer. Sucks the love right out of your work because you started the business to take pictures. Then Karen doesn't like the way she looks in one of them, so she wants the whole set for free, plus a reshoot for free, plus those images for free. Then the two high school kids getting into a very ill-advised marriage at exactly 18 years old wants to book you for their wedding, but their budget is only 50. Then Karen calls back because she loves your work and wants to pay for another shoot, but only if you agree to do her friend's daughter's destination wedding for free. Then you get a call from your last bride. It's been 2 weeks since their wedding. Where the fudge are her pictures? Then you get no leads from a bridal expo. Then a client finds out you don't support their candidate and tries to take you to court to get her money back. Then some Insta thought who thinks she's influencing people offers a collab where you take pro photos of her and she adds shoot Insta filters to it and claims her friend took them. And she's not going to pay. And then you get some entitled mom who wants you to photograph every day of her newborn's first year of life for 100. I went back to being a hobbyist. Answer, same. I burned it out after a few years. You realize how weddings are so cookie cutter, no matter the religious segment that they are attached to. The shittiest one has got to be the couple who refused to honor the contract and didn't pay me after their wedding. Naturally, I held their photos until payment was made. They tried suing me for not delivering their photos because apparently the 50 deposit was enough. Fudge that, took it to court, and the Justice of Peace, this is in Canada, ordered him to pay up. Partied too hard a day and 400 to file the case. Really pissed me off for a long time since I met this couple at a church I used to go to. We even all hung out with other church friends prior. Years later, this jerk and his wife was found to be running an illegal puppy mill. He tried discarding one of the puppies at a Plaza shopping mall by throwing it into a garbage can. The puppy was inside a garbage bag and was crying, and people heard it and rescued it. Security cameras caught and ID'd him clear as day. Police raided his house and found he had a bunch of animals in unkempt condition, and the whole house smelled like shoot. When you Google his name now, you find all of this. Pure karma. Story 83. UPS work. You're not a person, you're a cog in the machine, and if you become faulty, well, you're easily replaceable with some other cheap part that the company doesn't even care if they have to replace. Story 84. RD or product development. Very high pressure job since you bleed a lot of money and need to produce for the company to be worth keeping. You basically need to invent things while making sure that others haven't done it the same way, while other competitors have their own people doing the same simultaneously. There isn't any guarantee that 2 or 3 other companies are doing the exact same thing and are further into development while you're conducting preliminary trials before your invention disclosure. Months of work and millions of dollars can go down the drain if you are too late. Story 85. Cybersecurity. Bro, the movies do us no justice. Hacking is not as fast, nor is it as easy as the media makes it. It's a great field, but you spend a lot of time researching or watching paint dry, especially in the gov side. Edit. I'll never be able to answer all of your questions. I'll answer some PMS as I get a chance. Edit 2. No more questions about the field. Getting spammed. Answer, oh man, after 20 years, I've worked my way to the top of the non-management IT staff. Think you will be building all the cool new shoot? Designing new systems? Hell no. Meetings, documentation, answering every question the lower tiers couldn't sort out, trying to wrangle management just to keep the old shoot alive, hauling VIPs grand ideas they got from a SkyMall article back down to reality. That's my days now. Oh, and everything I did before I got promoted because they are not going to hire that position right now. Story 86. Bartending. It can be fun, but only if you have the right crowd. It only takes one jerk to ruin everyone's night. Plus, most bartenders rely heavily on tips. So if you don't have a good tipping crowd, you're screwed. Story 87. Professor, I am not a college professor yet. Still working on my master's, but I'm an assistant and do a lot of extra classes, helping students to do assignments and study for tests. This method is very common in Brazil, but these college kids are so entitled. First semester students thinking they know all the shoot about microeconomics because they think they are libertarians or some other shoot. Story 88. Acting. All the ones we see on TV and movies are the 0.0001 of incredibly lucky and talented people who manage to thrive in a hostile and overcrowded industry. And even when you are working, the actual job itself is 99 sitting on an apple crate in hot makeup waiting for some grips to move a lighting fixture. Then you say 3 lines over and over again for an hour and then you rap. Answer. Working in entertainment in general, you really need to love what you're doing to succeed in it. It's long hours, no social life, and you need to be 100 on the ball or else someone else will take your gig. Not only that, but you need to be at least tolerable to work with. People think everyone in entertainment is a self-centered jerk, but that's not really true. They definitely exist, even the highest positions, but it's still rare overall. And unless they're talented enough for everyone to put up with, they tend to be snuffed out pretty quick. You work 12 to 14-hour days on a good day in a team environment. No one wants to spend that much time with a jackass. Story 89. Veterinarian vet tech you. Healthy and happy animals are in and out in 20 minutes. You get to spend most of your time with the angry, sick, and dying ones. Even good owners get angry and hysterical when their pet is in bad condition, and you never, ever get used to euthanizing pets. Story 90. When I was a kid, I wanted to work in a chocolate factory really bad. I thought that it would be so cool to work in the chocolate factory that I was ready to work there for free. When I turned 16, my dad somehow managed to get me a job for 1 month in a chocolate factory near my house. Apparently, I had never seen the inside of this factory. I only got the smell of cocoa when I passed near it. When I went there were no chocolates, but just tons and tons of dirty cocoa powder. I'm not kidding, there were cockroaches too. And they apparently just made the raw industrial chocolates in shape of huge cubes, and the whole commercial manufacturing was done in another unit. It was so dirty and tedious job, I can't explain. After working there for 2 weeks, I left the job, and still the smell of chocolate gives me flashbacks, and I dread of ever visiting that place. Story 91. I have seen this question before, and then it was Zookeeper at the top, comment 2. Nice. Anyways, there's this Making of Frozen 2 mini docu. Most animators work weeks for a minute of animation of one character, if not less. At one point, they decided to leave out a piece that one person had solely been working on. Must be crappy to be part of the credits without being able to say, this is my part. Story 92. Working at a yarn shop. As a knitter, I expected to get to do all the knitting and have access to beautiful fibers at a discounted price. Turns out, it's dealing with entitled customers who refuse to learn new skills. They bring in their mistakes to be fixed, get upset if it takes too long, or if we charge a fee for complicated or time-consuming issues, and then buy their next project online. See also, any job involving customer service. Story 93. EMT 70 of calls are absolute stupid and make you lose faith in humanity. 25 of calls do need to go to the hospital, but not by ambulance. It's only 5 of calls that are the adrenaline-pumping ones where you're actually saving a life. Story 94. Paleontologist. You don't get to work with full dinosaur skeletons and do all kinds of awesome expeditions. You're mostly sitting at a desk looking at some pictures and logging stuff on your computer, maybe examining a fossil occasionally. If you're lucky, you can go on a real dig and OMG, spend hours in the hot sun dusting off rocks. Story 95. Google Street View driver. You're all alone for 8 hours a day, can almost never take a break, need to constantly be on and focused, lest you crash the 25,000 Subaru with 60,000 worth of camera equipment on it. You end up becoming an amateur meteorologist to keep track of weather patterns and cloud cover. And in my experience, there are a lot of people who just get insanely upset at you, at Google, and the job in general for a wide variety of reasons. I enjoyed myself when I did it, but it was nowhere near as glamorous or fun as I or my friend's family assumed. Dead it. Thanks to everyone who expressed an interest in my summer job from almost 10 years ago. I'll just answer the most asked questions here real quick. Pay? 15 an hour, but contingent on hours driven, which were themselves dependent on clear weather to ensure optimal image quality. Why not drive every day no matter the weather? Google got around this problem by making you redrive routes whose pictures turned out subpar. To prevent people double billing by driving the same easy route constantly, you also had a weekly quota of unique miles driven, so no double dipping. What could you do in the car? As long as the camera and the mapping software, thanks for the heads up, was running properly. I was on my own. I listened to music, the news, and lots of books on tape. I could stop for short bathroom breaks whenever I felt like it, and had an hour guaranteed for lunch whenever I wanted to take it, which usually amounted to eating in the car on the side of some lonely rural road 90 of the time. Who would ever think this was fun or glamorous? All I can say is, back in 2012, most people I talked to were pretty excited, myself included, about getting the chance to do any work with Google, let alone this cool new project that would let you see what any place on Earth looked like at street level from the comfort of home. This was the era of Google Plus being a potentially exciting new thing, of Google Glass being the future of tech, and overall it was a different time. That's why everyone I knew thought this was a cool gig. Answer: had that gig for a while too and agree. Kinda sucked that actually caring about the quality of my work, not driving while the weather was iffy, meant I was making less money than people who just drove regardless of weather. Also, the pay in general sucked. I heard the Bing Map drivers got paid like a third more. Always thought a free Google Maps t-shirt would have been a nice token, also after driving X hours. On the bright side, sometimes you'd come across people who were super excited to see you and do goofy shoot for the camera. Sometimes I'd check later and occasionally see it made it to production. Story 96. Working in an animal shelter. For sure, it's probably less intense than zookeeping, but the amount of people who apply or volunteer expecting to come in and play with cute puppies all day is absurd. We're basically animal maids. You deal with animals of all sorts of behavioral and developmental stages, shoot and pissing every fudge where, and then you look over and this fudge dog named Chumbawamba swimming in his water bowl. So you got to fill that up 6 times and dry his kennel out, and then you go and mop up the cat room around 10 kittens who want to eat your mop, and also 4 children who are all yelling that there's puke in the floor and I must clean it now. Not to mention all the extra behind-the-scenes work that the public never sees. How in the summer during kitten and puppy season, the shelter built to house 500 max has 750, and I didn't take a lunch or sit at all for any of my shifts for the past 6 days. How the courts force us to put down animals that we know can be rehabilitated, but we don't get enough funding to fight it. How animal control just showed up with the 4th pregnant stray of the week, but intake is full and even double stacked in some cases. So your coworker fosters the cats on her own. Not even to mention the shoot fudge people who do dumb shoot and end up getting bit or scratched. And the animal is the one who bears those consequences. I am the proudest shelter worker in the world. I adore my job, even at its hardest. I didn't sit for 9.5 hours today, and I found a cat turd in the cuff of my jeans, but it doesn't matter because a bonded pair of adult cats got adopted today. I took 6 applications this morning, and the cat in bank 4 with the goopy eye is already looking better, and we sent a mama out to foster. The hard work is always worth it for these babies.